Greetings, my acolytes! Before we get started, this is a bonus video that pairs with a much bigger project, so head on over and give that one a watch first. With that out of the way, let's get started. A few weeks ago, I released a deep dive into the use of horror aesthetics within the fashion world and made a note that if I missed anything or any fashion shows or any particular collections, to please share it with me. And our lovely commenter Cheesy actually brought several shows to my attention that are definitely worth discussing. Also, while you check out the deep cut, please check out their incredibly informative comments. They are super insightful. That's what I like to see in my comment section. It's wonderful to be able to have informative, friendly discussion with like-minded people. And so that's what we'll be getting into today. So welcome to Horror in Fashion, the bonus round. A quick small caveat though, as this is meant to be a supplementary video, I'll be keeping it light in regards to the more technical aspects, and more so going over how the shows presented work within the general framework of the horror genre. Think a more casual discussion than a full-blown lecture and presentation. We will still be maintaining chronological order, however, just to keep things nice and tidy. And with that being said, first up on the docket is McQueen's 1996 show entitled Dante, yes, as in that Dante, is a blend of several frightening motifs, mostly based in religious horror. While the overall clothing design is relatively simplistic in terms of construction and presentation, the elements we're looking for lie in the accessories and overall presentation of the show, as this runway was held inside Christ Church in Spitalfields, located in East London, specifically chosen as McQueen was pulling inspiration directly from the 14th century poet, as well as his own fascination with the architect of the church itself, that being Nicholas Hawksmoor, who was rumored to have ties to Satanism. So it comes as no surprise that this collection is rife with connections to the subgenre of religious horror. Looking at the aforementioned stylings and accessories to the couture being presented, we find a range of items containing Christ imagery, witchcraft imagery, and even imagery that is considered demonic in nature, such as with Look 8 with the deer skull headpiece, complete with antlers still attached and a winding purple arrow, or perhaps even a devil tail, wrapping around the model's form. This style of headpiece can be found on several other looks as well, with the horn motif being recreated in a rather interesting manner with Look 39, using pheasant feathers. In terms of Christ-like imagery, we find crucifix accessories seen all across the collection, as well as a crown of thorns headpiece in Look 71. This brings in the blasphemy element, as it reduces these so-called holy symbols into things to be worn. The one I particularly find most poignant being the crucifix black mask combination seen on several models. What manner of sin lurks underneath your peaceful facade, I wonder? Following this, and leaning further into darker religious themes and now martyrdom, comes McQueen's 1998 show, Joan, so named for the Catholic martyr Joan of Arc. Utilizing a color palette of predominantly silver, red, and black, McQueen paints a scene evoking feelings of tragedy, the rage of war, and overall pain. These concepts are further cemented by several of the garments featuring prints of ambiguous Victorian-era children, rumored to be the Romanov family, though this seems to be just that, a rumor. The majority of the ensembles are made with draping. They are very robe-like in nature, and not unlike the robes found amongst clergy members within the church. What is most notable, however, about this particular show is its finale. A model draped head to toe in red, face completely covered, stands amidst a ring of fire, posing as the flames burn. A display that leaves itself open for a number of interpretations: a feminine rage, a religious experience, or a vibrant expression of hurt and passionate emotion. This collection encapsulates the darker side of the religious experience, perhaps even more so than the one that came before it. Whereas the 1996 collection came with a playful, devilish kind of behavior, McQueen's Joan brings an in-your-face element of abject suffering to the work. It is a two sides of the same coin, if you will. Concluding our supplementary section on McQueen, we come to the 2009 fall ready-to-wear show titled Horn of Plenty. Now, for those who don't know, that's those little horns you see around Thanksgiving time that are usually flowing in abundance with either nuts or fruits or other small foods. However, McQueen used this symbolism as a sort of send-off to the 2000s, and the collection itself was intended to make a very pointed statement on the consumerism of the time, and honestly one that still stands true to this day. That is, that fashion is being consumed at an increasingly rapid pace with sadly very little sign of slowing, and this commentary is further cemented through the set dressing being comprised of a mass of various debris, some of which finds its way onto the models and even the garments themselves, with further contrast being brought by highly tailored tweed suits in the vein of Chanel's stylings, mingling with bright, garish, harlequinesque looks. The entirety of the show is really rather dystopian in nature, and the models themselves are no exception to this notion. Styled with the palest of pale foundations and over-exaggerated, almost bloody-looking lips, the model's appearance becomes incredibly unsettling and uncanny in a very twisted depiction of beauty. This look has also been likened to that of the very early prototypes of sex dolls. This twisted appearance is further accentuated by the previously mentioned dichotomy within the garments themselves, as there are several pieces that contain debris similar to that used in the set dressing, such as parts of umbrellas, garbage bags, lampshades, the rim of a tire, and even what looks to be part of a plastic basket of some sorts. Mix these in with the more well-tailored tweed and houndstooth looks, and you really drive home that surreal, end-of-the-world, over-consumed, picked-apart sort of energy. And despite his frustrations with commercial fashion at the time, the tailoring of the show was indeed top-notch, with Look 45 being what I consider to be a blend of the themes of the show itself, displaying not only McQueen's sculptural skills, but also capturing that monster-like feel that is presented through the general appearance of the models. Being that they are covered in feathers, this one calls to mind the feelings of a vulture or perhaps another kind of carrion bird. Moving forward through time to the 2020s, we are once again brought to Maison Margiela, specifically Maison Margiela as directed by John Galliano, who manages to deliver a series of horror hits in a very familiar way. Do you like YouTube short films? No reason. Second question, do you like thrillers? Do you like ghosts? Do you like in-depth commentary on the creation of fashion as a whole through a unique storytelling medium? Well, congratulations, because Maison Margiela's artisanal fall 2020 collection has all of these things. A combination of both runway, photography, and film, John Galliano and Nick Knight present the collection through the lens of classic horror presentation in the first part of a two-part project called Swalk, S-W-A-L-K, or Sealed with a Loving Kiss. The basis for this method of display was motivated by Galliano's desire for transparency, and so, through Zoom calls, body cams, Google searches, and other traditional methods of filming, we are taken behind the scenes as each piece of the couture collection is constructed. And while entirely fascinating and a different sort of thrill in its own right, there is a level of strangeness that comes with being a silent observer of the process. Even more so knowing that that's the intent. The project was made knowing it would be viewed for the express purpose of being viewed, and yet given the predetermined notion for how fashion is quote-unquote supposed to be consumed via a very exclusive, elevated, secretive sort of thing, it comes off as taboo in a way, as we technically aren't supposed to be here. And that leads us to our ghostly element. Using a combination of drapery, a minimalist color palette, and very hazy photography techniques, we are presented with a different sort of transparency. In a very literal sense, these phantoms of fashion ever so slightly turned away from the camera or slightly obscured behind delicate chiffon. The clothing is also chopped up and re-sewn together, a coming together of old things in a new way. The crossing of two worlds, as it were. Are the ghosts really supposed to be here? Are we really supposed to be consuming fashion in this way? And so, the Swalk project continues into the spring season with a similar ghost-like vibe, but with a much more southern Gothic flair, intended to shake up the so-called spirits of the past and evoke change, the desire to move forward and reach acceptance. Pairing up once again with Nick Knight to create a vibrant yet eerie dance of cultural exchange and values, this collection brings to mind an old sort of melancholy, in that the past watches on as we move forward, whether with or without it. Looking at the garments from the collection itself, they follow a similar vein as the previously discussed pieces. Vintage pieces paired with gauzy drapery over the models' faces, the bridal look, that being look 29, and the funerary-esque attire of look 32, being the most haunting of them all, at least in my personal opinion. Again, we see drapes of lightweight material, with the bridal look being accessorized with lights in its veil, pushing the otherworldly appearance even further. This contrasts look 32, where the entirety of the ensemble is dark, nearly perfectly blending into the backdrop of the photo. And while contrasts of black and white tend to imply a good versus evil sort of energy, here it feels more akin to the old and the new, not in opposition to each other, but rather occupying the same transitional space. After all, what is a wedding or even a funeral if not a place of transition, of moving from one thing to another? In a wedding, you are joining two families into one. In death, you are moving from one state of existence into another. It is all about transitional phases. A folk horror tale really tells us all we need to know, yes? For Margiela's Autumn-Winter 2021 artisanal collection, Galliano explores the feelings of the pandemic and being, quote, brought to our knees by nature. This short film touches upon the anxieties felt in the 2020s, and this is explored even further in the way that the clothes were constructed, with the items originally being made several sizes too large and then overprocessed, washed, and shrunk to the desired fit. A literal wearing down by the natural elements was done through stone and enzyme washing to remove dye from the materials themselves as well, and pushing it even further, the lookbook for the collection abandons the traditional notions of still photographs and instead opts for moving parts. Every item is presented, well, in motion. There is no stillness to be found. Much like in the natural world, everything is alive, shifting, and changing. It's honestly jarring to look at. There's no real place for the eye to rest, making for a very effective means of presentation. There's a constant sense of unease in looking at these clothes. The horror of nature is that it can never truly be stopped, and it leaves us to question what we intend to do about it. To conclude this section, I want to bring up a final tidbit that connects us back to our original video. That is the mini-documentary for Margiela's 2024 collection entitled Nighthawk, another Gothic horror-tinged presentation where we are also treated to an insider look into the creation of the collection for 2024. I won't divulge too much, as if you haven't seen it, you absolutely should, as it is a delight of eerie vibes and couture construction. So go check that out when you have the time. And so we've come to our end once more. There's so much more detail we could go into, but this will be saved for future videos as a McQueen and Galliano script are already in the works. And I would be remiss to spill all the good, gory details here. So for now, I will say keep it creepy, keep it couture, and I'll see you in the next video.